I mean, I think Canada has had their number in the last couple of seasons. Canada wanted to be able to beat them 5-0 now. It's insane. And see what happens as the spots are past the they're all from the knockout. I think Mark.
It's 5 o'clock. Well, that's one way to get Lauren moving.
Oh, we can wait 15 seconds for Nico.
All right. Let's call the Village of Oregon Park Board meeting to order. So we'll go on to Joy's with us this evening for a roll call.
All right. Miller,
Present.
Frisch. Here. Herneman,
Present.
Lees,
Here.
McDaniel,
Here.
Ruati,
Here.
Knutson.
Here.
Very good, thank you. So item approval of minutes, they're not available for the January 13th, so we won't act on those tonight, but we will look at that in the future. We do have an opportunity with item 4 for public appearances. Do have an opportunity that anybody would like to talk to the park board has a right to do that. We do have some limitations on length of time and likewise comments from the park board. Does anybody wish to talk to the park board? Hearing no action, we'll continue on. Item 5, we have reports from the village staff. So 5A is the Director of Public Works report. That was in regards to the Gary Dish Park, which was in the packet as well, and information from the packet.
I got it.
That's good.
So I actually took this one. We're joined today by Ross Rettler of Rettler Corporation. He's right here. He's available to answer any questions from you all. But we got our bids back for the park, Gary Dish Park. Speedway Sand and Gravel came in as the winning bid. And with the alternate 2, which includes metal shade structures as opposed to the cloth structures, it was $758,332. So with that, I will turn it over to you guys to ask any questions of Ross.
You guys have any questions? I do. I always find it interesting when I see a big variance. And so you do too, because obviously bidding quite often. And so it always kind of raises an eyebrow. And so typically you ask some questions like, so are you really got everything?
Yep.
Did you find any discovery, anything in regards to that?
Yeah, so I think we did a good job qualifying the bids. We did go through everything and did an in-depth process with Speedway. I think the biggest thing, first off, they provided a $20,000 in-kind donation as part of the project. So I think that was one of the bigger items. But as you looked at how the numbers came out as a whole, one of the big items was topsoil. And as I was thinking more about it, I think a big part of that may be them having a local pit here around this area and the amount of trucking that they would need to move material. They were very competitive from that standpoint. Their irrigation system was also quite a bit less, and those were the items that I did discuss with them and clarify that they did have those items bid correctly. Ultimately, I think you guys got a really competitive bid. I think they do a lot of work locally, and I think that's a big part of it. You know, as you look at just our bidding environment in general right now, we've bid quite a bit of work. I think numbers are up a little bit. So as you look at the numbers that you got, I think you just got a very competitive bid with Speedway and what they provided. So we took time to discuss items with them and work through it, Mark. So yeah,
Awesome.
make sure they're
One of the things that did jump out at me a little bit is the copper, and mark this up, no, my version doesn't have a markup. I think there was a copper irrigation, and there was that was also, I was curious about that because
The
of
water
the fact that.
service.
Yeah, because of the fact that copper is a commodity. It varies in price quite a bit. And so that was one that just kind of looked out to me.
In terms of using copper?
Well, just because there's a difference in price between it, and I think the
Right.
way it was itemized, it kind of allowed that opportunity for a unit. Copper water service, item 27 on the
Yep.
utility. No, that's not the one.
There's a pretty big variance in terms of the lineal foot price. You'll see like 117 for Speedway, 75 per Parisi, 349 a foot for H&H, and then 135 a foot for Mizey. And I think it's all comes down to, you know, the other big thing I think when we need to, when we're bidding work and understanding now more than ever, I think materials are one thing, but I think when you look at those numbers, you need to consider labor. There's not a lot of guys out there laying flat work anymore, for instance, and like to hire somebody and have them be on staff to actually do that work and
Right.
self-perform that work. It's the labor price is a lot of what you're seeing too, so.
And that's really not a significant difference overall, you know, relative to the overall differences. But I think it's awesome for them to, $20,000 in kind is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's just a couple of thoughts that I had in particular, so. Any other comments? Go ahead.
Just a question. So the in-kind donation, can you explain that? What's the incentive of a company to do that? This is from a complete place of ignorance on that, just to
No.
be clear, but.
Great question, Matt. So, anytime we bid a project, if you have local folks or even somebody working in different areas coming to do work for you, we always provide in our bid an opportunity, on our bid form, an opportunity for somebody to provide an in-kind donation. Now, as a contractor, they could easily just say, okay, we're gonna donate $20,000, but then we're gonna put it somewhere else or throughout other items in our bid.
Right.
But the bottom line is, it's $20,000 off their bid, their bottom line number. So I believe, you know, as they look at this, it's a great opportunity for them to give back. That's why we include that
Got
as a line item in the bid for them to be able to support the project,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
right?
Yeah.
Good question.
Lynn?
This might not be a question for you, Ross, but in general, for village staff, it looks like we put about 700,000 in the CIP for this, so this is coming in over budget. Is this, in the world of capital bids coming in over what, how do you feel about this? Is this okay, like, do you feel comfortable with where we're at? I mean, it's not gonna get cheaper, right? So like,
I think Ross has done a really good job speaking to this. I think based on what we have seen, this is where the market is for the scope of work that was included in this project.
Okay.
And we kind of talked about it. You know, this project is actually quite streamlined in a lot of ways. It is a playground, it is some grading, it is a field with an irrigation system and equipment and materials that have to be installed to do an irrigation system. So there's not a lot of, there is a shelter, but there's not like, oh, we could downsize our shelter. Oh,
Sure.
we could swap out decorative rock for something a little more pedestrian.
right,
It's very much kind of basics. This is what we wanted and this is what we got. So I think it's a great question. We never like to see bids come in high, but I think that's kind of something for the park board to consider is, you know, did you like this project? Do you like this project? Do you like these improvements as designed? And if so, I would certainly advise that this is the best price you're gonna see from a very good contractor. Speedway is well-known in the area. They do excellent work. So, yeah, that's probably not a great answer, but it's something to consider.
I think like you said, I think it's the most streamlined it doesn't seem to me like we're getting a lot of flashy extras that we can really pare down here. And this is for the neighborhood, something really important, and that they've, you know, wanted, it's not even that they wanted, that they expect to have, right? And I think there's something to be said for that. So I think it's just helpful to know sort of where the comfort level is from you guys in terms of your expertise.
Other comments? We did also have some alternates on there, where it gives a choice to do some other things if you wanted to flow it up. So I think it's always good to have a couple of those, not too many of them.
The recommendation, I might add, also recommends a 10% contingency be held on the project as well, so that's in there as well.
Understand that? Well, very good. You want an action from the, the park board to approve on that?
Yeah, the action that we'd be looking for is to recommend
Right.
approval to the village board.
Do we have a motion for that?
No.
You have a second?
I
Lynn? Beat you, Jamie?
Looking at
Jamie, you got it. Do we have a second? Any discussion in regards to it? Let's call for a vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you
Ross.
coming and visiting. Move on to 5B, Director of Community Development Report. Yeah.
So unfortunately, Elise could not be with us tonight. So I can speak to the public input session that we recently had. And Baltazar and Joanna are here from Dane County if you have any questions. But Elise and I and Rich, we invited the neighbors within X amount, a radius of the North Point property, including the new North Point residents. And we had a nice listening session at the library. We didn't have a strong attendance. We only had a few, but it was a very productive conversation. And it was all very positive and very much looking forward to having a park in that area. What that park looks like and what it will entail, we don't know yet. But as far as a park being there, it was definitely a favorable response.
Awesome. Was there any particular talking points that you had offered to this attendees?
We kept it pretty vague. We asked for some demographic information, like ages of those in the household, how they would get to the park, as well as, giving a few options, like, do you want to see a more natural park? Do you want to see more of like your classic bright color, elementary school type park? Also, we asked about uses, like, do you see yourself using this for passive recreation, for active recreation, as well as we kind of looked to seek out what the priorities were because the grant can only cover so much. So we asked about like picnic shelters or shade canopies, and everybody seemed amenable to anything.
Well, there's currently a couple of picnic tables, which I'm guessing
Yes,
North Point.
yes, North Point put those there.
Which was nice.
It was very
It's really
nice.
to do that. Did you have any comments that you wanted to make about the listening session? Well, welcome.
Hi, thank you again for having us here. Joanna Cervantes, I am the manager over at it's long title, Housing, Access and Affordability, Human Services Manager.
My name is Baltasar Tienda Santana. I'm the CDBG Home Program Specialist.
And I would say, I think feedback that one of the biggest takeaways, and I think the last question that was asked at the meeting, having the residents there was, what do you think about the funding source, right? Because I think part of it was trying to find out, what does the community want to have in this space, but also, is this a good fit, right? Getting the money, is the grant a good opportunity? And every single resident that was there said yes. It's great to hear that there's money available and that we could shape this park into what fits in our community. And so that was from my perspective, the biggest takeaway. We're here, we're making ourselves available for any questions you might have about the grant, because right, all money does come with requirements. And so what questions do you have? Any concerns, anything that we can help clarify? I think that would help shape the conversation a little bit more.
Any ideas? Any questions? So one of the suggestions is that it goes through the developer, North Point, and that, can that create any issues, any challenges with the?
Yeah, so I think one of the greatest challenges might be just administrative right now at the beginning. So Beth and I, we've been meeting with the state. So the funds that we're talking about is CDBG disaster relief funds. Of the disaster relief funds and why we're able to apply it specifically, because I think that was one of the other questions, like why specific to the site, right? Now, why not elsewhere in Oregon? The reason we're able to put it is we got shy of $2 million in total. $1.5 million was invested directly towards the development of those property units, the 24 housing units. We put it directly into the construction of it, and that's where our partnership came in with North Point Development. Initially, our application to the state was for that 1.5. That was our intention. We weren't asking for $1 more. The state came back after our 1.5 application and said, well, we have some extra money. Could you take it? Our response was, well, we can take it and we can see, but I'm not sure that we're going to we are definitely not going to over subsidize the property. We can see if there's any perhaps construction overrun costs that we can apply it to. We can wait and see. Construction happened. People moved into the housing units, and in looking at the subsidy layering, what that property just needed was 1.5. Now we're left with just shy of $500,000. Part of that we have used it for costs like environmental reviews, the cost of inspections. There's multiple administrative costs that we have incurred as well as like staff costs. When you start to deduct those expenses, you're still left with a little bit over $400,000. And so the next question was, what do we do with these funds? In our conversations with the state said, where the idea stemmed from was seeing that green space that's right next to the development project. In talking with your village staff, it seems like 2029 might be the earliest that you guys can probably put some money into it. A question, and sometimes my ideas can be a little too crazy. It was, hey, we have this extra money from this project. If feasible, can we put it into the project? And so that's where the developer kicks in, is the way that the state is seeing it. They're seeing it as one project. They're seeing this as a contiguous, in alignment with the affordable housing development. So that's why the developer has to be tied in, because we already have that agreement with the developer. I'm going to sum up here. The state, what they're really just looking for is a 15-year lease with the developer and the village that has that tie back to the property. It doesn't mean that it's exclusive just for the residence units there. The state's looking for that quote-unquote paperwork that's going to have that tie back, that's going to allow us to then fund the like the public improvements in the park there. We've already met the national objective. We already met all of the requirements that the DR funds require. It's just to have that tie back to that specific space. That's the requirement. There's other things like the environmental. We've already done it. We actually did it for the entire property. So there's other parts that we've already done. At this point, the only thing that's missing is that lease. So going back to your original question of like what problems, I think it just might be a timing issue here of, can the Village of Oregon and the developer, leadership and attorneys, right? Because I think the attorneys are going to be looking at the contracts with the fine print. Can you guys get to a lease that is amenable to all parties? And if so, if you can get past that hurdle, I don't foresee there being any issues. Like Benta said, is a part of my team here at Dane County. Like I know for a fact, as much as he was on top of the developer for the construction of the housing units, I know he's going to be working hand in hand with your park staff as well as the developer to ensure that we're meeting all federal requirements. But again, if I'm just being honest, from my perspective, I think it's just that lease, getting that lease together and in place. Did I miss anything?
No.
It does help out a little bit knowing that some funding, the same funding source did go through North Point as well, so it's already kind of established. Knowing how that this property's gotten a lot of awareness within the community, I think it's great to add something additional, knowing that even just how many people walk around that block and that whole area and stretch, and knowing also some of the age of some of the youth that are around there. You see them coming from the child care center as well, so it does offer some things I think would be really attractive. So
Thank you. I know one of the questions that we received recently is like, well, what has to go in there? Like, does it have to be a playground? The program standards just says that the items have to be fixed to the ground. So
Okay.
that's what makes it, like, if you go down the natural route, like, just making sure it's fixed and not like a movable item. The state and Dane County doesn't really have we don't have a say in this because this is your community, right? Like, your residents should have a say in what they'd like to see there, and I think it's important for you all to create it in a way that makes sense for the residents that live there, and we'll use it.
And if I may add something, just like what Joanna mentioned, we are here to provide that technical assistance as we are trying to figure out, the reporting and all of that. Most of the reporting is gonna come, it's gonna go through to the developer, but we're gonna be here to try to support so that we can all comply. We do need to finish the project by September 30th of this year, so we do have a quite fast timeline, but Dane County, we are willing to help as much as possible so that this comes to fruition.
Awesome. Don't think there's any particular action on our park board, but I think there's more information. Lynn?
Thank you for your partnership. This is really helpful to have other entities come and assist us in getting a great resource to the community. Leanne, I don't know if this is something we as the park board can do or if this is something that you and Elise feel comfortable doing, but to the point about the child care centers, there are a couple that are pretty significant in the area. And I know in talking to a couple of people who are at the listening session, they weren't there.
They were invited.
Yes,
as well as OSD.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
I just wonder if we could send out another message to some of them, because anyone could
absolutely.
continue to give feedback right now. We're not giving any preferential treatment for any feedback, but I think being able to help them to understand that, this is a space that we are trying to envision for them. Similarly, like, I don't know that a playground is necessary for them. There are a lot of parks, but maybe a space where they can go and have a picnic lunch or, getting an idea of how they could use specific styles of this park and keeping that in mind, because it would be nice, like, during the day for those entities to feel like they can use the space. So again, I'm volunteering if you want me or park board members to reach out, or if you want to reach out, I think it would
I'll
just
talk
be
to
nice.
Elise.
Great.
I'm fairly certain we can take care of it. But
Awesome.
yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. You're welcome.
Other comments? Go ahead, Jim.
Is North Point on board with the park? Okay, because the administrative burden is going to fall on them, or the reporting?
I mean, ultimately, the administrative burden falls on Dane County
Okay.
because Dane County is the grantee. We quote unquote put burden on North Point. North Point then puts the burden on the village. So, if I'm being honest and transparent, all parties are going to
Okay.
carry that burden. But I think it's important that I think we walk in knowing what those expectations are, and we have been from the very first day. We've mentioned these are the federal requirements that are gonna apply. Speaking with Sean, who is the representative with North Point, it seems like they seem to be on board. I know that they're still in discussions with the village to talk about that lease. So that's where that negotiation comes in, right? Like the fine print in what happens on that legal document. I think if we can get past that part, then everything else is good.
Andy?
Hi, thank you for being here. You said September 30th of this year was a deadline for project completion. That's like construction and everything, or
Can-
that?
Yes.
Construction and submitting, construction, and then what's the last day for submitting invoicing?
So the last day of invoicing will be November 30th.
November 30th. Okay, so
Yes.
even if the scope of the development of this park is not in line with what the funding is, there's nothing saying that we couldn't develop the park up to that point, and then when we have in our CIP, money for further development, we can make enhancements at that point. So
So my recommendation is do it in phases.
Yeah.
Phase 1 is whatever we're gonna do with our dollars.
yeah,
Do that, close that chapter out, right, with the September 30th deadline, and then you can start phase 2 whenever you like. And
whatever,
then
sure. Yeah,
that's
I
when you
mean,
can use your CAP.
it's just hard to turn down free money.
I know.
So, I mean, that's, I guess that helps because that way you know, there's an avenue for this to happen without having to shuffle money around when we're already, you know, spending more money on the previous project here in the agenda, and there'll be other costs as well elsewhere. So, but that's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, number one, thank you guys for everything you do. Appreciate it. And just for the record, if this comes to a vote at any point, I'm gonna have to abstain because of my actual job. So I do have a couple comments, and I love parks. That's why I'm here. So I think this is great. I am worried about the optics of using CBDG funds to build a park. And the reason I asked that question is that we looked at other options that would be more appropriate for like disaster recovery stuff, whether it be floodplains or anything like that. In case, honestly, if we're ever asked, I mean, it would be good to know if we had that answer going into it up front. So more of a comment and kind of a question, but
Yeah. May I ask, is your concern on CDBG DR funds or is CDBG funds in general?
just FEMA relief funds.
So just to clarify, the CDBG DR funds are not FEMA funds. They come from the CDBG program. This is the last option. So if they can't spend the money here at the park, it doesn't go back to Dane County and it doesn't go back to the state. It actually goes back to HUD. So Dane County in general loses those funds altogether. So this is like our last effort to try to apply the funds before that last date of September 30th. Based on like when they initially, trust me, we've gone down this route with the state and asking like what other options we have, and this is really like the state's last effort and just trying to spend down every single penny that they were given.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Other comments from the park board? Hearing none, I don't think there's any particular action. I really appreciate the update and your initiative to moving this forward. So if we can help out, let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So moving on to item 5C, Recreation and Programming Coordination Report.
All right, I don't have much to report, other than next time I will have a ton to report. But currently I'm working on planning all the fun events we have coming up, so I will have more solidified plans at our next meeting. And I spent last week at a Wisconsin Park and Rec conference, so I learned a lot, got a ton of new ideas, and those will be coming down the pipeline as well.
Wonderful. Great, good to know. Always looking for fresh ideas.
Yes.
Moving on to item 6, the unfinished business. So item 6A was about the pickleball court lighting cost estimate update. So that was into the packet. So was there any particular changes in those?
So this is also from Elise, so I'll just
Okay.
comment on this. This is strictly informational.
Is it?
The last update was the pickleball club, for lack of a better term. Sorry if I'm using the wrong term. They wanted to, or they expressed interest in finding out how much it could potentially cost to illuminate the pickleball courts. We got essentially market research from Ross Rettler, the same gentleman that talked about Gary Dish Park, and he discovered it would be approximately $85,000 to $95,000 for the lights at the pickleball courts. So that's really all it is, and do with that information what you will.
Any comments from the park board? Nico.
So they're planning to fundraise with this. Is this a concrete number that we can give to them, and then they can like, oh, we need to raise $95,000, and then they, or like X amount of $95,000. Can we say something like that, or make a plan as to what that is?
I would.
That's why they were asking.
So the way I would word it is, I would basically just say Ross Rettler of Rettler Corporation obtained a bid, and this was the number that came in. So this is an indication of where the costs would be at, and that way you're not saying, yep, this is exactly how much it's going to cost. Leave yourself some room for variance, but that is a range, $85,000 to $95,000 that you can go with.
Other comments from the park board?
I have a comment. I'm trying to figure out how to say it though, because I know Andy's sitting over there and he's gonna say when he talks to any one of us, he goes, okay, the total cost is $85,000 to $95,000. We as in the Friends of Oregon Pickleball can fundraise because we're looking for ways, and we fundraised things in the past to cover some of the cost. What percentage would we have to raise? And I don't know if anyone has an answer, to that. And I guess, Lauren, I mean, are you looking for park board to come up with a percentage? Is it staff to come up with a percentage? I mean, Lynn's gonna go, there's no money because we've gone through the, the CIP, try to shuffling things around. I think there's avenues, to get there, but then it also sets the precedent of, okay, if we tell pickleball, this is this percentage, then you're setting a precedence for, okay, baseball wants lights or softball wants lights or someone else wants lights. But then again, I say that's great. I mean, if you can come up with that percentage, for the overall project, I mean, sure, we can probably find ways to fund it. But I also look back at, pickleball's track record of fundraising for the overall cost of that project, which is why I got moved from phase 2 to phase 1. And it was a much higher percentage than any other organization, kicked in as well. We're looking at, multiple double-digit percentage as opposed to, single or partial percentage of an overall project.
So I guess a couple of thoughts on that. Elisa's memo, I think, is excellent in that this is informational. This is not a recommendation in any way. This would be a case where, as staff, the board would we would see the park board making a recommendation to the village board and providing some direction, and we will execute whatever that is. You guys, the village board, you tell us what you want us to do, and we'll make it happen. So I'm afraid, unfortunately, there's no easy guidance as far as a percentage. That's not something that staff has discussed at this point. And I don't have a great recommendation. So that's something I think that we would need feedback from you guys, but we'll make whatever it happens to be happen.
Judy?
So you're saying if we give them a percentage, you're gonna find the rest of the money for it?
If the village board tells us to do it, we will do it.
So where are you gonna find the money?
We have, the easy answer is that our borrowing is coming up. And so that's the time that we kind of look at what we have in the coffers, what do we need for the projects we have planned out, and make those numbers line up. And I will not speak for the village board. My guess, I would probably defer to Lynn, but my guess is the village board will ask, if this wasn't in the CIP, why is this being recommended? And there will have to be an answer for that. But again, we can make it happen, but we need a direction on it.
So Lynn? I mean, where are we gonna get the money from?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lauren is doing a nice job of explaining the tricky situation that she is in. But I think that the reality of the answer is that when she says we'll make it work, we'll borrow what we need to probably to make it work. And so, Lauren's always going to execute whatever we ask to, but the reality is that there isn't, it's going to come from borrowing probably. And again, I'm not an expert. Maybe Phil should be the expert on the village board. I just think it's one of those things where, if any of us knew that there were funds sitting out there that we could pull, I think we would have done it by now. We're in a tight financial world right now.
Is there a timeline for that?
For the borrowing process?
Mm-hmm.
Well, excellent. We have Lisa here tonight.
There is a timeline. We'll be starting to put the CIP together that was in the budget for 2026. Probably within the next couple of weeks, because we want to have our borrowing done by the middle of May, which is what we did last year. It's a pretty good time frame. So we already have everything in our CIP budget that was approved through the budget process, which this project wasn't in there. I don't know what the board would want to do with that information. The only other thing, as I was sitting here listening to everybody, is I don't know if the pickleball group could maybe seek out maybe some grants maybe to help offset the cost instead of the village having to borrow funds. Because I know that the CIP is kind of already set for 2026, actually for the next 10 years, and I don't know if it's even in there at all right now.
As of now, it is not.
Okay. So that would mean probably moving a different project out further, which has been probably waiting longer.
I guess one other piece of just input, if you will, I wouldn't even call it guidance, is that in my experience, I have seen this kind of a chicken and egg thing, right? Pickleball is like, well, what are you going to contribute so we know what the number we have to hit is? I've seen in the past that the board kind of sees it the opposite way. Well, what can you kick in? What does that leave us? And then we can decide if we want to fund it. So just something, for pickleball to maybe consider is that may be information that the board would want to see before even taking that step, is what their commitment would look like.
Matt?
Yeah, it's just one way of looking at this too is exactly what you just said, right? And the way I look at it is it's a relationship based on mutual trust, right? We're going to trust the pickleball folks to raise some money, and we're going to try and raise some money and kind of meet in the middle. And I don't know that we need a percentage on either side as we work this out. That's just my view on it. We'll do what we can when we have the funds. Pickleball does what they can when they raise whatever they raise, and figure it out from there.
My only reservation with that is what happened with JC Community Park was there was a goal of raising $500,000. If you take out what the bank did, the community raised, well, take out the sports organizations and the bank, the community raised less than $100,000. The cost of the project doubled. So we went ahead with a project that the community overall didn't want to fund, which I don't think this is the same comparison there, but that's why I'd be a lot more comfortable knowing a dollar amount. I wasn't on the board when all the redevelopment and planning went through. I'm still salty about the overall cost of all of it. But, I think there's an avenue to do this. It's just finding a way to do it. But if there's no money for 10 years, why go through the exercise, for pickleball to say, hey, we're going to raise money. And they're going to say, well, we can't do the whole thing. So why even try if the village, has no money to do it? I mean, if it's up to me, I would love to find ways to fund all of the projects in the parks.
Well, if pickleball is like raising the, like we don't see like softball raising the money for the softball things. Like they're not going to raise 20% or whatever pickleball is going to do that we're still deciding on for this. And if they're just raising the money for it, I mean, I think it makes sense to move some other stuff back if we're just getting that like from the community that we can just take. Like the community obviously if the community can fundraise our amount that we set, which is to be determined, I don't see why we really shouldn't do it if it's just basically like free money to the CIP for us. Or, sorry, I misspoke.
No, I mean,
That's
Nico,
fine.
I get what you're saying, but it's also, it also sets a precedence because if pickleball says, okay, this is gonna cost, we'll just say $100,000 and we get, say, X percent, they come in with that, we find the money. If I, as a public citizen, come in and say, I'd really like a disc golf course, it's gonna cost $50,000, I'll give you $10,000, or, whatever the same percentage is the village board then obligated to go, well, this was the same percentage that we did for this other group, now we have to do this project? I don't know if it's necessarily what all of the community wants, it's the very loud portion of the community that wants this because it's important to them. But it's by taking money from other projects throughout the village and all these other park projects. I mean, you take money away, you see something that's in the CIP, you take that away, you're gonna find out who that was important to. I mean, it's just a really poor situation to be sitting in right now.
So I think we need to either give them a number, or like if we can give them a number, that would be great. Or we should say like 0. I don't think
Fundraise all of it.
I don't know if being wishy-washy achieves anything. I think you can speak to that. What do you think?
One of the things that they asked for is, what is it going to cost? And so that's what we did, is we asked them to find out what the cost is. So the intention is that they would needed to find that out, and we have to find out a plan to do that. I don't think there's a percentage into this. It's not like there's a limit. There's no different. I've seen this in other fundraising. They will look at it, but you got to have a vision as to where you're going to get to that end result. And does that really come back to us to go to the village board and say, you tell us what your vision is? Like, no. Maybe we should be asking pickleball what their vision and what's that capability of doing that. I don't see that it's a burden that now we're going to take it to the village board and say, okay, what are you going to ante up to this? The reason we've gone through the SIP is that we've committed to these plans, and we got plans for multiple years. That's where we're at. And I know the staff is creative, and the year comes up, you got different costs come in and such. Things roll up, things end up having differences, but can't plan for that. But I see that a little bit of the pain from the parks is that they got to commit to what we do. The village ended up at that time saying that, okay, you do this so much, we'll go farther. That's not what we're doing with everything. We got to cover it all. Nico.
Well, I think we can just take like what percent would we be okay doing this project with if pickleball raised it? Does that number exist at all? Like
100%.
100.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, that's the easy answer. It's not a good answer, but it's the easy answer. I mean, if they came in with all the money, then it would be a lot easier to move forward with it.
There is some situations that you can look at that if they get started or if you end up raising enough money, that more will kick in. And so there is some opportunities of that. And some of that can be grants. I've heard stories about that. It's like, well, if you get this started, we can submit for this grant. But the grant says you got to have something plan of an action. And so then it does become a little more of the chicken and egg. We have to have something in place in order to get the grant to go forward. But have some vision where to go. Like to come forward, Andy? I'd love to.
So, Andy Weiland, 763 Ridgeview. A couple thoughts. One is, and I'm just going to remind everybody, we had lights. Lights were taken away. So it's not a new thing, right? We actually had lights, we used them. We don't have lights anymore. We have we have half the lights, right? Just they don't do anything. We have the poles, the conduits all there. It's kind of a project that's half done. So I think that's an important component here when you're trying to think that through. Fair to say that other sports in the park also have the same situation, but I don't know that it's necessarily fair to compare it to somebody that wants to put disc golf in. Just my thought. Point 2, unless I'm mistaken, and I could be, I think you just had potentially a $400,000 opening in your 2029 capital budget. Is that not true?
Are you asking us that question? Do you want do you want us to answer that, or is that like just a thought?
I guess it's a thought.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I heard some money that was pledged in 2029 is now maybe perhaps not needed, depending on if everything goes as planned. So there's a thought there. You want a number, everybody's afraid to throw out a number, so I'll just throw out a number, and, you know, my friends might pickleball me to death, I don't know. We'll find out. But I think just to get off, plus I have another meeting, just to get off the ground here, you know, we were at 20-some% of the budget when we did pickleball, the courts and everything. You know, I would throw out 20% or $20,000. Like, that's a number that I bet you we could get to if you told us that was a number. So I'm not gonna ask for an answer here. I know you got a process to go through and all that kind of stuff, but I think we could get to 20,000. I think we have 3,000 or 4,000 already in the bank. And so for us to be able to get to that $20,000 number, I think that would be something that we could do. And if the board, the park board, or the village board or whatever said, you get to that number, we move on, I think that would be a great number to start with. Trying to think if there's anything else I would share. Yeah, I think I appreciate the times, the struggle. Again, I would say that as far as if you were looking for a return of investment of people that are that actually used your facilities, your parks, there isn't a better square footage or even investment ROI anywhere in the village that I'm aware of. And if there is, please let me know what that is. We have a multi-generational, very diverse group of people that just love playing pickleball and we're willing to kind of move this process a little forward. And so, do you have any other questions for me?
Questions? Judy?
Have you looked into grants at all?
I think we have. Mike Barone is more involved in that, but I think we have looked at some. We're willing to look at more. I mean, if people have leads or anything. I have a couple different hats, so I know a couple grants that are out there that we're working on in a different part of my day job. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate it. So I don't think there's any action in particular we can make in this one. Ponder that, give some thought. If staff has any ideas as to, you know, that we open that up as well. Item 6B, review of the possible recommendation of the village board regarding a new park facility naming policy. So that was in the packet itself. So we had talked about that a little more.
All right, so it is still under review from the village attorney. So we're just gonna provide input tonight, if that's okay, and recommendations. So let's see. So I made some adjustments based on your input from last time as well as input from our village administrator. And it's all pretty minor. So if you go to the first objective, I know you guys had asked, you know, how far do we go? Like, I think we should define, are we naming each individual swing? Are we naming open fields? You know, we need to set a limit. So we just put something like, here's what you're able to name: a field, a diamond, a court. Obviously, we're open to more, but, you know, basically saying, let's not get crazy. All right, and then, let's see. So if you go down to selection criteria, I know we had a discussion on what a major donation or what a major gift would be considered, as well as the village administrator. He also said we need to have something saying, like, this is the definitive line of a major donation, or saying whose responsibility it would be to determine whether or not it's a major donation. So basically, this punts to you guys. So in general, we thought, you know, at least half of the value would be a good way to start. And what that determined value is at your discretion. So it can be fair market value of the land, total project or construction cost, or endowment value for future maintenance. And then Martin just wanted to add something that park name should be, oh, yes, this was, so we had to be kind of tricky with saying something like it can't be named after certain organizations because we don't want to infringe on First Amendment rights. So we just changed it to possible names must be considered neutral. And then also they wanted to see something about it should be different from other park names in the village, which is understandable. And then, let's see, 2 of the processes were combined because they were basically identical. It just adds a little part saying that staff will give it a temporary name as we work on it. All right, the renaming process. This is where it gets fun. So we can't say you can't rename a park, but we just put anything more than 25 years will be strongly discouraged. And then I took out the part where, and this was based on your feedback about having to get majority agreement by the residents, so we just took that part out. And then under the criteria for the renaming process, we took out the part where we took out the part about the deed restriction. Martin said Martin said to do that, so I did. As well as the part about, if the name happens to be controversial, we took that part out as well. And then I added, based on your input, something to include signage of what the former names and the history of the park were kind of leading up to how we got to this name. And then also we were advised that plaques, markers, and memorials should be their own policy altogether. So that's just scratched out, and it just says this policy does not include that. And then I think those were the majority of the changes that were made.
Comments from the park board? Matt?
Just one thing, I noticed in the packet too, the controversial part, I think it was B up there.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend leaving that in. I just, so that we're not boxed in on the 25-year piece.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the last part of it I think we could probably lose. I forget, I can't read it right here, sorry.
No, that's okay.
But just to keep it general enough that we can change the name of the park whenever we want to without it really boxing everything. It's preferred not to, of course, right? And we don't even have to say if it's controversial or not, just to not box ourselves in and give the village options, just a recommendation.
Well, that's why it says highly discouraged, it doesn't say we can't.
That's a very good point too, yeah.
And I believe that we did have to leave that in because if somebody purchases naming rights, there is typically a 25-year limit on that we have to honor.
Other comments from the park board? I think the 50% seems like a good turning point because you're getting to the point of are you going to be able to move forward or not? And so a commitment to pay half of whether the value of the property or the improvements and such does make sense. You're moving it to that point past that majority. So I think that does make some sense. I think it makes sense to keep it as neutral, possible names neutral. You're kind of generalizing, not getting too specific about potentially attacking individuals. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I like the 25 years, and you start thinking about generations and how long people have been around. It gives us some guidance overall. So I like those changes overall. You looking for the park board, or are you going to wait for the legal?
I think we'll wait for legal. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. He tends to, take apart documents.
Something will change. I anticipate that.
Thank you for making the changes.
Oh,
though.
you're
I mean,
welcome. I'm glad you like them.
it's a nice process.
Awesome, wonderful, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Item 7, new business. New park facility reservation policy. Yeah, she laughed, so about it.
All right, I got to write my second policy here in my career. So this is basically, we kind of pieced together policies that we've had unofficially or just, weren't documented at all, so we put it all together. So we started with the booking process, and essentially it's just kind of a how-to guide, and how it's confirmed and just sort of, when payment is expected, all that fun stuff. The second is the group classifications. So shelters, it's resident, non-resident, but then if you have a 501c3, you can rent it at no cost. So athletic facilities, we do have a couple more categories, resident versus non-resident, community organization, and athletic organization. So for example, we have like Special Olympics, they have like a kickball tournament, like maybe one day a year. So we define the organizations as those who book it pretty minimally versus those who book it on a consistent basis, is how we're defining it. So like Special Olympics using it like 1, maybe 2 days a year is different from soccer, who's using it a lot more than that. All right, and then the process of booking as far as priority and conflict resolution, it's all first come, first served. Everything, whether it's submitted by email, voicemail, or through Civic, it's all time-stamped, and I literally just go with who requested it first. Sometimes athletic organizations, they all kind of vie for one spot, and if there's any conflict there, they're great about working it out between themselves. Or sometimes I will step in and say, look, this organization really has to be on this particular type of a field. You have these other options, and it's worked out for the most part. And then granting exemptions or reductions. So this is where it got kind of tricky. I wasn't sure. I kept it general at first, and just, again, I punted to you guys. But if for some reason an athletic organization would like a reduction or an exemption from their fees due, they're welcome to come before you, and it would be ultimately your decision based on, questions, and we would ask them to provide some proof as far as, are they charging a fee? Are they, what does that include? How would this cause a financial hardship? Along those lines. And then just the fun liability of if you get hurt, sorry, but yeah. And then also if something gets stolen while you're at the ballpark, it's, all that fun stuff.
Comments?
So you like to end it on a positive note is what you're saying?
Exactly, yeah.
Andy?
Sorry, so you.
That's okay.
The 501c3 is nonprofit. But the zero cost, was that only for shelters or also for other park facilities?
For both.
Okay, so I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole here and
Okay.
say a community group gets together, puts together a nonprofit that says like Save Our Grass. And they go in and say, I would like to reserve all of the ball fields, and they get in there before all the sports organizations. They can get it for no cost, and then no one can use the parks?
No.
Or was there a limit on that?
There is a limit. I did have an actual number. Oh, yep, I did leave that in there. So approximately less than 5 occurrences is sort of the dividing line.
Between free and
Correct.
cost, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not saying that it's gonna
No, that's,
happen,
yeah.
but I'm just
I mean,
saying
it's
that it
pretty
can.
like one or the other so far with booking. I mean, I see like maybe 1 or 2 from one organization, and the rest are a lot more than that. We're not really getting like 8 occurrences that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's, yeah.
No, I mean, I guess I just want to public, because I know there were a few residents next to Norm Champion Park that didn't appreciate that soccer was being played there so much. I mean, so that they could, I mean, they could, if they don't want soccer there, they could reserve the field themselves and pay the nominal fee for it, or get it for every other hour and then just mess with soccer because it's something fun to do. I mean, I mean, there's avenues for people to be able to do these things, which I think it's great because it's not just a sports field, it is a park. I'm not saying it's the best practice to do. And that's, I guess I'm just seeing what your guidelines or policy were according to that.
Let's see. So, as I mentioned, it's first come, first served. For the example of, soccer and Norm Champion, just as an example, soccer has other options. So if the residents near that park did truly want to pay the fee and reserve it and make sure that it was strictly theirs, I don't encourage it, but they are welcome to do
it.
so. Absolutely.
They have the ability to do so.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. But if it were like a ball diamond or something specific, then I would say, like they actually really do need that type of a space. So let's let them have it.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Other comments?
I'm sorry if I forgot or if we
That's
talked about
okay.
this or if there was a decision. So when soccer's reserving, are they paying for
Yeah.
all the field now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Unless they
Until
come
they come
before
into
Park Board, yep, they
Okay.
are. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They paid in full for 2025.
So even the space they didn't use?
Correct.
Okay.
Other comments? I have a little concern on the 501(c) because I think that still can open up some doors. There are organizations within, with the village, the 501(c), and you could potentially have them and just make reservations too. It's
Mm-hmm.
not much different than a resident and non-resident. Residents still can make a reservation for some non-resident and do some of that. So that's why I have some hesitation. Just been involved in some of those. It's no longer here, but the marching band. Marching band was a 501(c), and they needed a lot of space. They use a lot of the school space because of the parking lots and access to everything else. But I just think that I'm not sure if that's a real delineated. That kind of runs through my mind as a question overall. I certainly see the resident and non-resident, but and maybe it's just something that we just let run and see how that goes, because some things you can't plan everything. You just go with it, and you end up just let it go from there.
But again, Mark, I mean, nothing is saying you have to reserve the park to use it. The reservation just guarantees that you will have the ability to do so. So
It's kind of the fee side of it.
yeah. So
But, okay. Looking for approval on this, moving forward?
Yes, pending, again, I think village attorney will have to review, but if you'd like to make a recommendation, go for it.
Do we have someone make a motion to move this forward?
well, I will.
Andy's got a motion, we got a
Yep.
second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion about it?
My motion is pending all the other legal stuff
Okay,
that
Yes.
Leanne just said.
okay, fair
So
enough.
moving
That makes
it
sense.
forward.
We'll see how Joy handles that one. Any other discussion regarding? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, so moved. Moving on to just looking at upcoming dates, March 10th and April 14th are the next two meeting dates, also have laid out. Any conflict with majority of the board? Okay, we'll go with that. Any other assignments? I think the biggest thing is just keeping a look at your parks. We are going to be starting to see the parks revealing. We'll find out what kind of debris and other things have drifted into the parks and burden that off into the staff to be able to clean up. And hopefully we can continue on with kind of adopting the parks or at least having cleanup. And so that's always a great opportunity to have village residents to actually go and get to know the parks and clean up and realize that there's lots of stuff that would be really helpful to get cleaned up so that you can enjoy them through the summer. So that would be the only thing, is just be aware of those parks themselves. So I'll go around to the board to see if there's any other comments or anything else. Judy, do you have anything?
Not tonight, thank you.
Certainly. Nico?
No comments.
Nothing? Lynn?
Nothing for me?
Matt?
Nope, I'm good.
Andy?
No, thank you.
And Jamie? Nothing. Got nothing on my part either, so.
Mark?
we'll-
Mark,
yes.
can I mention a couple things?
Certainly.
They're mostly just items for future meetings. I just wanted to put them on the park board's radar so that you guys are aware that we're working on them and can think about them, or not. So one of them that I know is very visible, and that's why I really did want to talk through it. We know that there is a lot of amateur artwork on the skate park. We are well aware of it. We know that we've gotten some notifications from community members about it. We are looking at options, and we are going to bring some of the history of that as well as some of the potential paths forward on that to the park board for you guys to consider. But just wanted you guys to be aware that we know about it. We know that something has to be done. We just want to make sure we have some options to bring to you before we saddle you with a problem and no advice on a path forward. Second item, and it is a bit of, it's related to Leanne's park renaming policy. In fact, it kind of came in at the end when she was talking about plaques, memorials, that sort of thing. You probably know we get a lot of requests for memorial benches in our parks, and in the past, those have been handled at a staff level. The costs are predominantly covered by the individual purchasing the bench and requesting it, but it does take staff time and it does involve resources to put those benches in. We have to go in and we have to install concrete pads, that sort of thing. We've also seen an uptick in requests for those, and given that they are infrastructure in parks and that they do involve that time and financial commitment to get those materials, we do want to bring that through as an item for the park board to consider, because it's probably at this point not something that should be exclusively handled by staff. So whether that's, the board approving the locations of these things or providing options to residents that are interested. Again, we'll bring you some thoughts and recommendations. So you're not starting from square one, but again, wanted to put it on your radars.
Great points. Wonderful. Appreciate that. Look forward to carrying that forward. All right, we'll call for an adjournment. Judy calls for an adjournment. Second? Lynn? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you.